Okay. Good. Oh, all right. Oh, hi. How are you, folks? Good to see you. We're here once again at another episode. What are we up to now?
I don't know. No, we've got 3 of them loaded up. And I'm going to start loading the ones from January 2024 this weekend. This will be number 5 or 6. So
Okay, gotcha.
eventually we'll have upwards of 9 of them loaded up. And then hopefully we'll get to where we're make it, record it, and put it out the same week.
Yeah, and if you think some of our episodes are good, we've got some of our creative juices going here. It's going to be much more interesting as the time goes on. Anyways,
So we keep promising.
Yeah,
anyway, we haven't told them who we are.
Oh yeah, this is
Marc,
Elmer, and we are PSI, Piano Scene Investigations.
welcome back, everybody.
Yes, absolutely.
Today was really good for me because Elmer came to me originally several years ago to take piano lessons. And then the lessons included quite a bit of chatter.
Oh yeah.
As well, mostly after we dealt with the music and stuff. But we found that we liked the chatter so much that we eventually thought, why the hell don't we make a show out of it? Because we liked it. But today, he actually wanted to play for me.
Yeah.
And we had a lesson. Was it a good lesson?
Oh, it's an excellent lesson. It was. Oh gosh, it's even though I'm an old dog, I still think I'm determined to learn some new tricks. Definitely that. But anyways, I brought in Franz Joseph Haydn's Fantasia in C major, composed in, what was it, 1789. So it's 20 years before he passed away. So, right? 20?
Yep.
Yeah.
1809 he died.
Yeah. Anyways, it's a wonderful work. It's been on my bucket list for years, and so finally I'm, getting into it now. I've practiced it, but I'll be quite honest with you. I haven't had much experience with Haydn, or much less the classical style. So that's where Marc has come in. He's been very generous with his time and the information he's given me, but I've learned so many things about the classical style. We talked about articulation, we talked about trajectory, we talked about just numerous things about this work. And he's used to using a language that that's never been used in the times when I was taking piano lessons as an undergraduate. Most of the time I was taking piano lessons, I would say, okay, or I was told, okay, that was adequate. So when is the real work going to begin? And I was thinking, most of the time I was thinking, wow, the real work. Don't know what that, how far I could take that, or which, direction should I take it. But anyways, Marc has been very good at that. So he's introduced me to style and gestures and things like that. So, but anyways, I figured today, well, let me tell you, I accompany a church choir at St. Paul's the Apostle in Westerville, Ohio. And I've been there for probably nearly 10 years now. And last Thursday, I was informed that this year's Easter Vigil, okay, now, for some of you who are not Catholic and for some of you who are Catholic, know what the Easter Vigil is. It's the day before Easter Sunday. And we have this Easter Vigil. For some churches, they'll start it at 8 o'clock p.m., some of it 9 p.m., others, sometimes even midnight. Ours probably will start around 8 or 9 o'clock. And we always started off with this bonfire. And, in previous years, the new catechumens and converts are coming over to our church. They usually number around 15 to 20 new people coming into our church. Well, this past Thursday, we have an unprecedented 50 people coming into our church.
Wow.
50. And that does not include their children.
Wow.
So I don't know what they plan on doing. I'm not sure we'll actually be able to get through everyone if we start at 9.
Wow.
So there's been a push to start at 8 o'clock instead.
Pope Francis must be pretty popular nowadays.
Yeah, so it could be. You never know. But anyways, I thought for some of us Catholics who are in PSI and who are fanatics, I thought that maybe we could go through introduce repertoire that's actually from Catholics.
Oh, that's an interesting theme.
So, but anyways, all right. So I found here that one of my excursions.
To be fair,
all right,
before the 15th century,
yeah,
pretty much everybody was, right?
Yeah, pretty much. Yes. Okay. Yeah. But anyways, church has changed since then.
Oh yeah.
So, but anyways, I bring to you, through one of my excursions to one of our book sales and dumpster diving.
Oh.
I introduce you to Padre Antonio Soler, 1729, 1783. And I was first introduced to that name by one Alicia de la Rocha. She used to play some sonatas by Padre Soler.
Yeah.
And he was a priest, as you can tell from the name. And not very many people know about who he was, but apparently he was a student of Domenico Scarlatti.
I wondered about that.
Yeah, it's there. I mean, they're working.
Yeah.
And I've often wondered that because some of the work and some of the mannerisms in his work are almost like Salieri or Scarlatti. Excuse me. But here it is. I found
he's more or less a contemporary of Mozart, maybe a little older.
Yeah.
Like he's more. When was 71?
1729. Okay, I had it. I'm sorry, folks. Let's do the page turning here. 1729 to 1783.
So he's older than Mozart. Was born in 56, but he's also older than Haydn because Haydn was born in 33 or something like that.
Yeah, and he died in 1809.
Yeah, so he's a little bit older, but I've never played any of Soler's music, but I've heard it.
Yeah.
And I thought I was about to ask you if he was at all connected with Domenico Scarlatti, despite of his name. You guys know, you guys are known about stuff. Domenico's father, Alessandro, was a really important Neapolitan Italian opera composer.
Yes.
And then Domenico, of course, was quite a gifted keyboardist.
Yeah.
And he ended up working for, was it Queen Isabella?
Yes, in Spain.
And she had, anything she wanted.
Yeah, everything.
And she always was getting the newest instruments.
Yeah.
So he had access to single and double keyboard harpsichords. And then as time went by, some of the earlier forte pianos that would be clavicembalo.
Yeah.
Well, actually, that's just a word that means it's like the keyboard, but yeah. It's, so Soler came. So did he come from Madrid? You don't know necessarily.
Not a whole lot. I mean, okay, folks, you're gonna have to forgive me. Maybe we'll do a follow-up episode on Antonio Soler, but I had to put all this stuff together because
Anyway, that's right.
I was preparing for my piano lesson. So, but anyways, look what I found here. You might find this interesting. I found this separate sheet, Sonata in D major, and it's actually published by Alfred. So it's the one. It's not a very long work. It's only 4 pages long, but it's very Scarlatti-like. So.
That's pretty.
Pretty interesting, huh?
Yeah, it looks very Scarlatti-like.
Yeah. Now, while he's looking at that, I also want to show you what I found in the dumpster diving while I was at my book sales. I found editions by one Frederick Marvin. Have you ever heard of this guy? Frederick Marvin.
Marvin?
Marvin.
Nope.
So I don't know if he's still around or not, but
He's
I
a
went
composer?
to. No, he's not a composer.
Oh.
He might be. I don't know, but he's more of a pianist
Oh.
because he has YouTube videos.
So this
performing
is saying
this.
he's a publisher.
Yeah, he's well. The publisher here is Continuo Music Press Incorporated at 170 Northeast 33rd Street in Fort Lauderdale, Florida.
Huh.
33334 zip code. So, but anyways, I don't know how many volumes there are for Antonio Soler sonatas for
Oh,
piano.
this is all Soler.
This is all Soler right here, and I've got 3 of them, 3 books here. One's white, and I could only imagine that maybe the other 2 are more, I don't know, later releases, I'm thinking. But apparently there's at least 4 volumes. And woe is me, I have volume 1, 3, and 4. So there's no I don't know how to find number 2. I'll probably
Get
find it
this from the
somewhere.
library?
I got this from the library.
Well,
That's all they had.
Get rid of number 2.
Yeah, no
Put
kidding.
number 2 in the. Nobody's playing this stuff.
Yeah, nobody. But it's you can find this Frederick Martin or Marvin on YouTube. He's performing probably all of these on YouTube. So, and they're all videos, and you watch his, you can see how his hands move and things. It's all live. So,
Well, this is interesting because these things have been picked up by different publishers, it looks like. Yeah.
Yeah.
Volume 3 is Bellwood Mills, and Volume 4 is Alexander Brody.
okay, didn't
So
catch that detail.
apparently he's been, well, he's also, Marvin anyway, Volume 4 has some notes written in here from 1968, which might very well mean the guy's not around anymore. But apparently he was doing a lot of editing of Soler's music, which is interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is not as good a quality print as the later ones are. This is the first one from Fort Lauderdale. What school is in Fort Lauderdale?
What school?
Yeah, one of the universities?
Yeah, University of Florida. I believe Ivan Davis is there, or was there, or he might be retired at this point.
I don't know. The notes are written here in 76.
76?
Yeah, it doesn't say too much personal about him. But you might want to show him that one.
Okay. So here's the release from Alfred. If you're
You
interested.
always have the really nice open it up and show that printing.
Okay.
Alfred does really nice work. They're thoughtfully edited, and they
Got a
got
little
some
bio.
historical information always at the beginning. And
Music.
some stylistic advice and various things like that.
So,
And the
like I said,
paper's really clean, the print's really good to read.
yeah, they've done really well. And these are the volumes of the Frederick Marvin edition. Volume 1, that's Volume 4, Volume 3. Can't help you with Volume 2. Have not been able to locate a Volume 2. But anyways,
Have you played any other music?
I've dabbled with it. They're, I mean, they fit the hand well. They fit the hand well. They're not quite as the fingering and scalar passages that Scarlatti has. This is more, you're right on the keys here and there, and lots of more ornamental passages and things. It doesn't. So, but anyways, that's what Solaris. So now we move a little bit forward, and believe it or not, and it surprised me that some pianists still don't know this, but Franz Liszt has written a few religious works as well. For a time in his life, he was ordained an abbey for the Catholic Church.
Later part of his life.
Yeah, a very good part of his life. And so, if you're looking for any religious works, he has written Ave Marias, and not just for piano. He's done some choral work as well. But he's written an Ave Maria, at least 2 or 3 of them for piano. He even has a Pater Noster for piano. He's done,
Well, there's the Harmonie Poétique et Religieuse, the Poetic and Religious Harmonies, a collection of pieces that move between, one might say, more poetic ideas and then very specific religious-based kind of pieces. Yeah. Then later on in his life, there's quite a collection of pieces that aren't so well known, but which have a strong religious connotation or very specific to them. I think he took orders when he was in the 1860s or something like that. Mm-hmm. And he tended to wear an abbot's smock or whatever you call cassock. Yeah. After that, the high collared thing like that. I just saw him in that a lot. Especially as an old man, he tended to dress that way. Yeah. Interestingly, that had been his mother's hope and actually kind of his plans early on when he was a kid, but didn't quite work out that way. He came from a real backwoods part of Hungary somewhere. Yeah. He wasn't born in Budapest. It was some village. Yeah. And Mom, somehow, I don't know how it worked, but managed to bring him to it wasn't Paris to begin with, because he studied with Czerny.
Yeah, he
Where
did.
was Czerny based?
Okay, Czerny was in, I believe he was in Germany.
Yeah, he was in
Germany.
Yeah.
Franz Liszt started off as a child prodigy. It's actually his father that gave him his first piano lesson.
Yes, Vienna, not Germany.
Vienna?
Vienna. Because of the Austro-Hungarian Empire.
Right.
Yeah, they brought him to Vienna.
Yeah, but anyways, he was a child prodigy, and he traveled Europe and performed everywhere, and everybody were just absolutely amazed at what this child could do. He was just a kid.
He was born in 1811, so as a kid,
raiding Hungary.
Even though writing, it's called
writing.
I think
R-A-I-D-I-N-G.
Beethoven, quote unquote, heard him.
Yeah.
Play and was at least, I'm sure, visually impressed with what he must have seen. I don't know if he really heard much by that time, but Czerny, had studied with Beethoven and was actually, he was quite a popular composer in his day and for a while.
Czerny?
Yeah. And oodles of stuff. The guy was apparently a polymath practically.
Oh, yeah.
Apparently, he would have several tables laid out, and he was working on different compositions at the same time. Yeah. And would just come over. It's almost like a master chess player that go from one guy to the next.
Yeah, absolutely.
He would do the same thing with these pieces and just add a few more measures and do that, this and that, and then because there's his oeuvre. I don't know if it's all exercise and everything, but it's like in the 600s or something.
Oh yes, it is. Possibly beyond. He's composed piano concertos,
and he managed to teach on top of that.
Yeah, he managed to teach.
I don't know how much performing he did, but he actually was the pianist who was in the famous story when Beethoven and he were both at the piano doing forehand something.
Yeah.
And they were playing in some, noble or king's or prince's palace or whatever. Yeah. And the prince or whoever it was sitting in the front row was talking.
Yeah.
And Beethoven took his hands off the piano, took his students' hands off the piano.
Yeah.
And suddenly became quiet. And then the royal guy said, why have you stopped playing? And Beethoven answered, when whatever who it was, when His Majesty or whatever speaks, all should be silent.
Ooh.
Something a little snotty.
Yeah.
And the guy was a little teed off about it, apparently, but it was Beethoven.
Yes, of course.
So he said, by all means, please, Kept his mouth shut the rest of the time. But that was Czerny that was playing with Beethoven.
Oh, wow.
Because he's the one that told the story.
Oh, boy.
He's the one that conveyed the story. There was a good one, when the master and I, as a young man, were playing. And that happened. But,
well, he premiered the Emperor Concerto.
Czerny did?
Czerny did.
Okay, so the boy could play.
The kid could play. Yeah.
Wow.
He was just a kid when he
and we did the poo-pooing. I mean, nowadays, with modern piano methods and stuff like that. Back in the day, I played Czerny as I've continued through different periods of my life and reworking things. Czerny is part of my regular warm-up makeup. I love them because of these compact little pieces with a repetitive idea, more or less, unless you get to certain things. But I like the ones that are a little bit more compact and very specific about what you want to do. And they allow for you to really be quite musically sensitive. I mean, in terms of your touch, the tone color and everything that you make. If you can do that, in a page and a half or something with pieces. I mean, Horowitz was a great example of that. Yeah. He was the master of the short form. Mm-hmm. Just, the eighth in Boskovsky, for example, just miraculous. And it says something. I mean, it's one thing to be able to play large works, huge repertoire pieces, the great collections of Schumann and stuff. I mean, Arthur Rubinstein, I think, was a great example of maintaining a line and interest and everything in large works. Yeah. Horowitz played some large things too, but his personality and his character, this is not entirely at all fair, because there's some remarkable performances from the 50s when he did the 8th and 9th sonatas of Scriabin. Oh God. But very clearly, I mean, I think some people would agree that it was sometimes in the smaller works. There's probably nobody better at the time than he was. I'm just like, okay, here's 3 minutes. See how fabulous I can play.
3 minutes.
No. It's quite a challenge to be able to do that, because pretty much the less time you have, the more expectation there is, and you're going to have to pull it off or not. But he's good at that. But I think Czerny should be considered seriously by people for its possible uses. Not all of it. And some of the stuff where he's trying to be more musical and it goes on for a while, it's not Beethoven.
Oh, no, it's not.
But the smaller exercises, which are repetitive in terms of what it's trying to teach you, I think are really useful, because you can play them up to an artist level in terms of articulation and color and trajectory and all those kinds of things, to really make it into a Horowitzian-like little tiny piece. Not that in and of themselves they're worth really performing for anybody, but in terms of preparing you to then step in to then working on some real repertoire and bringing that achievement with you into it. Yeah, I think it's worthwhile.
Yeah, I'd like to also chime in that David Duvall, the famous writer, columnist, multi-talented piano,
whatever, radio.
Yeah, did radio as well. Too. But he did interview Horowitz one time, and he asked him, "So, Maestro, out of all the recordings you've ever done, which recording would you actually like to be remembered for?" And apparently the maestro raised his glass of wine and said, La Ricordanza. He said, and that's a charity work, in case some of you don't know that work. It's called La Ricordanza.
Yeah.
And that's the one he wants to be remembered for, was that particular recording.
Yeah. It's variations on La Ricordanza. And then
do you know where the thing comes from?
Mozart, I think, isn't it? I think it's from Mozart.
Really? I did
And
not
he's
know
not
that.
the only one to have done that.
Oh, I didn't know that.
I'm thinking Liszt as well.
Liszt has a he has a transcendental etude that's
Let me look it up.
subtitled La Ricordanza.
Let me look it up. Go ahead and talk
But
to Joe.
you know what? Funny as it seems, we also have Gottschalk. He has a piece that's called Ricordanza as well.
Let me look this up.
Okay, sure.
First, go ahead.
But, all right, I'll continue on. But anyways, back to what I was just talking about. So, if any of you Catholics are looking for another work other than what we've just mentioned so far, Padre Antonio Soler, Franz Liszt. We also now have Ottorino Respighi. He has composed, and I'm thinking it might be an earlier work, not sure. It was definitely composed after he got married. The 3 preludes on Gregorian melodies. So it's 3 movements. The first movement is a molto lento. The second movement is a tempestoso. And the third movement is a lento. And I've read through these. None of them are easy. They're all very advanced, rhythmically devised works. And apparently, Ottorino Respighi, I guess on his honeymoon after he got married, his wife spent hours singing Gregorian chants to him on their honeymoon. And he just sat there and listened and just sort of marveled and soaked in the atmosphere. It was in the middle of the night, the moon is shining, and he's hearing his wife sing Gregorian chants. And so I would only imagine that's probably how these works were inspired. You can find them in Dover edition. Here it is. This is the Dover edition. The 3 preludes are the last works in this volume. So there's other works in it, as you can tell, Ancient Airs and Dances. There's also other works for solo piano. He's got these 6 pieces for solo piano from 1903 to 1905. And, like I said, Ancient Airs and Dances, and then he concludes the whole volume with the 3 preludes on Gregorian melodies. So there it is. Now, as we move on in history, let's see. I bring to you, all right, Mark, you're the expert on French here, but how do you say this?
Vers regard sur l'enfant Jésus. So, 20 Views of the Baby Jesus by Olivier Messiaen.
Olivier?
Oh, his name?
Yeah, well, both. I mean,
Olivier Messiaen.
Yes, there he is. But anyways, I actually found this volume at, believe it or not,
Wow.
at half-price books.
How much did you pay for that?
I only had to pay like $25 for it.
Wow.
Yeah, this
Durand. I can't find anything
from Durand.
too much about Ricordanza so far.
All right, at the time this thing was purchased, it was worth only $50, a $50 volume. And I tell you, I think you would be hard up to perform the entire book for a concert or recital. I have a recording of it performed on RCA Red Seal, recorded by Peter Serkin. And this is a 2 CD release. But this, well, geez, looking at all these notes and stuff, I wouldn't know where you would even begin. Here, you want to look at this?
I love to listen to Messiaen. I've never tried to learn his music
Oh, gosh.
because it is minimally challenging in the way of Gaspard and Lanois, for example.
Yeah.
Ravel's kind of writing and stuff.
Oh yeah.
It's extraordinarily difficult. I mean, just open up, show them an excerpt.
Yeah. Any random page
Any
you pick
random
it,
page.
and it looks like this.
I mean, it looks like some Ravel or something, but the colors and the sounds and things that he creates also comes from that kind of effervescent, evanescent, gossamer type writing that some Debussy, some of his later big works, lighter, and then definitely some of Ravel's music. One might even say there's a certain Lisztian tradition in the transcendental kinds of writing for the piano that he did that you can find in here. I heard there's a pianist, Mary Franz, did her doctorate at Madison years ago when I was working on my graduate degree. She played the Quartet for the End of Time.
Oh,
which was really very moving and really quite impressive. That was something that he wrote. He was in a concentration camp.
Messiaen was?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
I'm pretty sure he was, because he wrote it in the camp. And it was for piano. It's an unusual, let me look it up.
Yeah.
It's an unusual collection of instrumentation. Yeah. It's a magnificent work.
So anyways, this was premiered by his wife, by the way.
Wow.
So she must have been quite a pianist to be able to handle all of this. Anyways, that's Olivier Messiaen. How do you say Messiaen?
Messiaen.
Messiaen.
Messi. Messiaen.
What he said, okay? Yeah. All right. Now, the only other composer I could come up with who written
piano, violin, cello, and clarinet.
And clarinet. Okay.
Yeah. Wait a minute. Messiaen, in 1940, after the fall of France, Messiaen was interned for 9 months, not a concentration camp, in a prisoner of war camp, which may mean he was a POW or something, yeah. Stalag 8A, where he composed his Quatuor pour la fin du temps, and it was performed in the camp by Messiaen and fellow prisoners for an audience of inmates and prison guards. Wow. After his release in 1941, he was appointed professor of harmony at the Paris Conservatory. It wasn't for another 23 years that he was made professor of composition.
At
the
Paris?
Conservatory.
Wow.
He was a harmony professor. Wow.
Wow.
He's a very interesting person. Equally difficult, and sometimes, not all of his music, but I find that there's a continuity in the complexities, the sounds, the colors, and things that Messiaen was doing, and what, I just had his name,
another composer?
The American composer wrote Night Fantasies.
Elliot Carter.
Elliot Carter.
Yeah. I was going to mention Boulez.
Well, Pierre Boulez, yeah.
Pierre Boulez.
Yeah.
How do you say his name?
Boulez. Yeah.
Okay, sorry.
He was actually a student of Messiaen.
Boulez was?
Yeah, he studied.
See, I did not know that.
I just closed it, but a list of people that Messiaen taught.
Very
influential.
Did he ever met Nadia Boulanger?
Well,
I'd like to know that.
I'm sure they knew of one another, but I think they really came from different orientations.
Okay.
Boulanger, she and herself, there were two of them. There was Lily and Nadia. Nadia was the famous teacher.
Uh-huh.
Lily was the composer.
Yeah.
But Nadia Boulanger, interestingly enough, she was a composer herself, but a conductor.
Yeah.
And she was very interested in early music.
Yes,
she actually conducted medieval and Renaissance kind of chorus singing, and I would say her compositional influence, as I understand, because my teacher Dr. Robert Wynn studied with her.
Yeah.
I had lots of people studied there. Aaron Copeland studied with her.
Oh yeah, a lot of
Pat Piazzolla,
Quincy Jones.
Quincy Jones.
Quincy Jones.
Well, and I think what they learned from her was perhaps, I'm not sure how she taught or what she taught them necessarily, but she's quite interestingly, in Renaissance composers and things like that. I think what she was probably really good at was teaching part writing and voicing things.
Yeah.
Probably the most important thing she was able to do, which was to encourage people to stress their own particular genius and also where they were from.
Yeah.
Piazzolla, she asked him one time, she said, "What instrument do you play?" And he said, "Well, I play the bandoneon." She said, "Well, you got one of them with you?" He said, "Well, yeah, I brought one with me." "Well, why don't you bring it? Play it for me the next time you come to your lesson." Because he was writing atonal serial.
Oh yeah, that's what
and everything. Whatever. And then he brought the bandoneon, and she said, "Play me something that you'd play in Argentina." And he played this song very from the soul, whatever he played for her. And she said, "This is the music that you should be writing. You know, this is something your soul really responds to.
Yeah.
And you should do this." And he talked about that himself. He says he went, like a lot of South Americans, to Europe to learn how to be European.
Yeah.
You know, Claudio Arrau, the great pianist,
Yeah.
became one of the great, 20th century pianists in the grand post-19th century tradition.
Yeah.
And he was from Argentina.
Yep.
No, Chile.
Chile. Yeah.
Suddenly Martha Argerich, ended up a big European-based person. But Piazzolla went there, and he was writing all this atonal stuff and serial things, which was the big thing in the earlier 20th century. And she got him to look back at his own folk music and work with that. And the same thing happened to, with Copeland, when she went over. Because some of Copeland's early music also, because it's the post-Schoenberg kind of school.
Yeah.
A lot of serialized or atonal kind of writing. And she encouraged him to explore what kind of became almost, you can almost tell Copeland.
Yeah, you can.
He writes, because of the open fourths and the fifths and that kind of, that music became quintessentially representative of the American West, the American mind and culture of expanding to the West. Not that the Native Americans would have appreciated that, but sorry guys. Remarkable person, but I got off on it.
That's okay.
But no, I think Messiaen and she were very different orientations, because as far as I know, she's not opposed to 20th century music by any means, because all these guys were 20th century composers and wrote wonderful things. But I do think the difference, pardon me for saying so, between Messiaen and Boulez versus Boulanger, Copeland, Piazzolla, the Boulanger crowd, they wrote beautiful melodies. They still believed in melodies, some very interesting harmonizations and ways of doing things, but music still had that aspect to it where there were other international influences. Going back to Debussy with the Japanese exposition and the Gamelon expositions in Paris of the World Fair or whatever it was called at the time. The French especially became quite interested in Oriental things. That was true of Messiaen as well.
Yeah.
He was interestingly fascinated with birdsong, and so when Bartók went out into the countryside to record
folk songs
or write down old people singing old Hungarian folk songs or Romanian or whatever like that, all them southeastern Europe kind of traditions. Messiaen was out actually in the woods notating bird songs. He would listen to the birds sing and he would write it down. And then he'd come home and use that as a compositional material for his music later on. It's not true of everything he wrote, but it became more and more part of a lot of what he was doing.
Okay.
Famous for that. But that's interesting because then he's incorporating natural sounds,
Yeah.
which one could also say if he was first exposed to Japanese music is based upon nature.
Yeah.
There's a lot of aspects of nature, like the Fibonacci system, that kind of additive system, which is based upon natural arithmetic evidence in nature, the way that things repeat in a certain additive kind of way on one another. And that's very specifically a typical rhythm that's used in traditional Japanese music.
Mhm.
You'll hear it very often. Speeds up like that. Like the way birds sometimes hear it.
Yeah.
So, anyways,
all right.
I'm sorry.
Yeah,
I got
that's all right. Olivier Messiaen. Okay, you young pianist, you can mess with that.
Dive in.
You can mess with that at your own risk.
Well,
okay.
Put it this way: if you're really good enough to do that stuff, there's not enough people playing that kind of music.
No, not a lot.
And if you could play it well and stuff, one might say you carve out a niche for yourself where there's plenty of people playing Beethoven.
Oh yeah.
Not so many people playing Messiaen.
Not Messiaen. Well, the last time I heard anybody play anything from that book, there was a young lady that performed one of the movements from here, closed up one of her recitals in one of the rounds. She was extremely impressive. She was only 16.
Wow.
16 years old.
Wow.
She was a small thing too, and she had just gotten back, taken silver medal from the Busoni competition.
Woo.
Silver medal.
Woo.
And so here she was competing in the Arthur Rubinstein at
Whoa.
16.
Wow.
At 16 years
Good
old.
for her.
So, but
Remember who she was?
I don't remember offhand, but I did take her name down, and I did write down the programs that she did perform at that competition. She was very, very impressive. She did, with her size hands, I could not understand how she was able to get to Sonata by Carl Maria von Weber.
Oh yeah, notoriously. Boy had big hands.
He had very big hands.
Especially in the C major sonata. There's just some really hard passage work in it.
Yeah.
I've never. There's certain things I don't want to play because I was told by Howard, my teacher, that I have a very good piano hand, but I don't have huge long fingers. I would say I could stretch a minor 10th in the left, and I could do a major 9th in my right.
Okay.
That's about all I could do. So there are certain works of Rachmaninoff, the Opus 10 number 1 Etude of Chopin, frankly. Some of the Weber music, for the same reason. These were guys that had monster hands, you know. And then on top of it, it's not fair because Weber was playing on a forte piano.
Oh yeah.
And the compass was smaller than a modern piano. So when you turn that stuff onto a modern keyboard, you gotta have serious monkey fingers to be able.
Yeah. Not happening. Not happening. Not happening.
And yet there are some extraordinary pianists that just demonstrated by sheer will. This lady apparently, but Alicia Del Roca, also, she's a small lady. I've heard her play 2 or 3 times live. Yeah. She's a tiny little woman, maybe 5'1" or something like that.
Barely 100 pounds.
And she, I mean, for example, there's some Schumann pieces. Yeah. She's famous for playing Carnival and Papillon. Yeah. And I don't know if she played the Abbe variations, but some of that stuff is a little stretchy on the hands. Yeah. And the reason I don't like to play the Opus 10 number 1 of Chopin, for example, is because it pretty much requires the hand to be in an extended position for a long time, and I don't like that it could cause problems in the wrist or with the tendons or something like that. But then there's some people who manage to work their way through it. And, I mean, I saw some amazing, wonderful performances. I saw it 2 different times at 2 different orchestras play the Nights in the Gardens of Spain.
Oh gosh! What a gorgeous work!
Is it Faya, right?
Yeah.
Oh, wonderful. Once was in Boulder, and I don't remember where the other place was I heard. And then I heard her do one solo recital.
Wow.
And she played some of the Granados pieces.
Oh gosh, yeah.
And those are got some things going on sometimes, but just, I mean, there's some people that put themselves through but and my impression was when I met her and heard her play, Idil Beret, the Turkish pianist trained in Paris and she studied with Cortot, right?
Cool. Yep, she did.
She came to Cyprus, Turkish Cyprus, and played in Girne, or well, that's the Turkish name for it. At the old 12th century monastery. It's a wonderful place they have up there in the mountains. I played some concerts there, but she came and played, and all these people from Turkey and from the Turkish government. There were even some diplomatic people from the south of Cyprus came up to hear her play and everything. She did an all etude concert. There was, I don't remember now what opus it was, but there was one of the Chopin, I don't know, it was 10 or 25, and then one of the books of etudes of Rachmaninoff.
Oh, jeez.
And then I seem to remember, I think the third one was Ligeti. Georgi Ligeti. But it was all etudes. And I saw her, by that point she was a woman in her early 70s. And she was not very big, you know.
Yeah, yeah.
And it's just one piece after another. And the sound that was coming out of this Berzendorfer, I actually sat outside because it was kind of a summer day and a little warmish. And I thought, I'm just going to get a folding chair and sit outside this old 12th century window, which is right outside from the stage. So the tail of the piano was just in there.
Oh, boy.
I had one of the best acoustic seats in the whole place. And I was out there smoking my cigar and stuff, you know, and just listening and just thinking, holy God! They don't make pianos like this anymore.
No, they don't.
It was indefatigable, one thing after the next. Huge sound when it was necessary and everything, and holy
the discography of this lady is amazing. You're talking about somebody who's recorded the complete works of Chopin, the complete works of Rachmaninoff, all of them, even the revised editions and the original editions.
Yeah,
it's amazing. She even went as far as recording the Rachmaninoff cadenza to the Hungarian Rhapsody No. 2 by Liszt.
Wow.
So she went that far. She has
played chamber music, all kinds of stuff. As she got older, she did chamber music with younger musicians.
Oh, yeah.
And unfortunately, we don't tend to know her so well here in America because she's mostly Europe continentally based.
Oh, what blew me away?
British know her.
What blew me away was she's also recorded Franz Liszt's transcriptions of the Beethoven symphonies.
I have some of these things.
And Hector Berlioz' Symphony Fantastique. And I have that recorded. And it's mind-boggling how she gets the chiming effect on the last movement.
I don't know that.
You know?
That would be cool.
Oh, it is cool. I'll bring the recording.
Remind people who we're talking about.
Idil Beret.
I don't know if it's Beret or Beret. If it's Turkish, it's Beret.
Beret.
B-E-R-E-T.
Okay.
Her first name is Idil.
Idil.
And is she still alive?
I don't know. She may be.
I mean, I heard her before I left Cyprus in 2012.
Well, she had released, the recordings were released on Naxos, and so anytime I see a Naxos CD with her name on it, I pick it up. So, but she's recorded everything. But anyways, all right.
She's still alive.
She is still alive.
Yeah, you know, she wasn't as old as I thought.
Okay.
She was born in 41.
Wow.
Which means when I heard her play probably around 2008, that would have been 59, 67. She studied at Boulangers and with Harper Cortot.
Oh boy, credentials.
Oh, she also studied with Wilhelm Kempf. Wow. She had a big career. Lots of people.
Oh, I'm sure she did.
You guys should look her up, and it's interesting. I mean, you can find her stuff on Amazon.
Yeah.
But one interesting place to look for her recordings, because there's British people on there, you get on eBay, and you'll often find used LPs and sometimes CDs that you can get from England because the people have been collecting her there.
Wow.
She's got really quite an impressive story. You should look her up. She's wonderful. I thought she was great. I spoke to her briefly.
You did?
Yeah, she knew that I was a professor at the university.
Did you speak to her in English? Or?
No, she spoke English.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. I mean, why not?
Yeah.
She's international lady. I mean, she plays in England, right? She, of course, she's a Turkish speaker and speaks French fluently, but no, she spoke English. We didn't have a huge conversation, but I talked to her. I said I loved the playing. I said, I think I had the best seat in the house. I was sitting out here in that little chair outside the window. She said, yeah, I think you did. But it was amazing because I'm 5'8", something. And the top of her head came up under my chin.
Wow.
So she's a little dinky lady, you know.
Wow. So anyways, the last composer I wanted to bring up today is Paul Creston, American composer. Now,
I played some of his instrumental sonatas.
Oh yes,
as a pianist.
Yeah, so did I. Yeah, they're not easy. Holy moly! But anyways, Paul Creston, believe it or not his real name. Okay, not his real name. It's Galupi something. I don't know. We'll do a special episode follow up.
Really?
You know about his name. Yeah, he got the name Paul from a character that he played in high school from a play. He was in the theater, and Creston he just came up with because the kids nicknamed him Krusty.
Oh.
Krusty. And so he just decided to go by Paul.
What's
Creston.
his nationality?
He's Italian.
I'll be damned. I never knew that.
He's Italian.
Did he study in America? Or
Yes,
Europe?
he did. He studied. He went to school here in America.
York, right?
New York.
Yeah.
But anyways, yeah. If you're looking for some new music, folks, well, kids, you upcoming pianists, Paul Creston you don't get to hear from him a whole lot. He's got some major works, under his name. There's a marimba concerto. One of my buddies had performed it many times. It's a marimba concerto for marimba and orchestra, and he's also composed a sonata for alto saxophone and piano, which I've performed as well. And oh gosh, I remember I did it. I had to go to one of those solo ensemble competitions. I had to prepare the first movement alone in 2 weeks.
Yeah,
so, what a pain! What a pain!
He seems to have written for brass and woodwind.
Yeah,
quite a bit. I played at least 2 different sonatas. I thought one of them was with trumpet, wasn't it?
I don't know what else he's written.
Yeah,
But
and I remember it's interesting music because I mean there's some jazzy kind of harmony and elements in it.
Yeah, but the harmony is typically him though. There's something about it
it reminds me of this kind of post-serial 1940s era kind of one might kind of put in parentheses tonal music that they're writing at that time.
I was going to say it's more modal than anything.
There you go. That which makes it kind of also the jazzy compartment.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because jazz incorporates modes a lot.
Yeah. Earl Wild recorded this piano concerto.
Oh.
So that's interesting. He says he wanted to make a few modifications, and he asked for permission to change some of the way he was distributing the notes and things like that. And the guy said no.
He said no?
He said no to Earl Wild.
Wow.
So Earl Wild left it alone, left it the way it
was. And he still played it.
So he still played it. But he's composed plenty for piano, though. He has.
Yeah.
He's got 6 preludes.
Yeah.
There's the 5 dances.
They use them in, like you said, solo ensemble piano competition things with people. Because I've heard people bring in stuff for piano solo by Paul Creston.
Yeah, absolutely. So, now, if you're a real dumpster diver like myself, Hinson had a entry of his that was rather published.
Maurice Hinson.
Yeah. So, anyways, he had composed about 10 volumes of these works called Rhythmicon.
Huh.
10 volumes. And for the
Wow.
longest time, I was convinced volume 10 doesn't exist until one of my colleagues had told me, he says, do you have number 7? I said, yes, I have number 7. So we traded and made, copies for ourselves, our personal collection. So she had all of them except for number 7. I had all of them except for number 10. And so it was a fair trade.
This is piano solos now?
Yes, it's piano solos. And I can only compare it to perhaps Bartók's Mikrokosmos. Because volume 1 starts out very simple, very basic. Quarter notes, long notes, a few eighth notes thrown in there. But eventually, when you get to 10, it gets much more advanced rhythmically. So, and something else really, really interesting about the volumes is where, I don't know where this is where it began, but he introduces something called the 12th note. So now let me explain this, okay, the 12th note. We have 8th notes, we have 16th notes.
Oh, you mean rhythmic.
But rhythmic, that's why he calls it Rhythmicon. He says the triplet 8th note is not an 8th note. It should be called 12th note. And that's what his logic is. And so from time to time, you'll look in these books and he'll have time signatures that are, let's say, 9/12, and 12/12 or 6/12, which means to say that the 12th note is actually a triplet 8th note in our, common practice. So I thought that was really interesting. But yeah, look him up. His name's Paul Creston. He's, like I said, he's written plenty for piano, but you're really hard up to find them. Now,
I get it. The way he says that is because if you have a whole note,
yeah,
whole note has 8 eighth notes in it.
Yeah.
So if you put 2, so it's 2 times 4,
Yeah.
which is 8. But if you have triplet eighth notes, 3 times 4 is 12.
12.
Which would equal the whole note, which is why he calls it a 12th note.
That's why he calls it.
Why.
Yeah, I thought it was very clever, personally.
It is.
It's very
It's
clever.
original.
Yes.
Maybe a little smart ass. But, say triplet eighths, the 12th note.
Yeah. No.
Oh, yeah, da-da-da.
Yeah. So, for all you virtuosos out there, Paul Creston had composed these large-scale works for virtuoso pianists called narratives. Narratives. There's 3 of them. Okay, I've been able to locate only 2 of them. The first one, or the second one, I can't remember who the dedicatees were, but one of them was dedicated to Claudette Sorel.
Oh, I know who she was.
So, Claudette Sorel. But number 3, which he subtitled as, oh, by the way, the narratives have Greek names of Greek gods and goddesses. One or two is named Venus. But number 3 is, narrative number 3 is subtitled Hercules. And it is dedicated to Earl Wilde.
Wow.
Yeah. So I have not seen a note of that narrative number 3, but I do have copies of number 1 and 2. And they're both, so they're not quite messy in, but nevertheless they're plastered with notes. I mean, if anything, they look more akin to something like Rachmaninoff or Mettner.
Really?
So they look more like that. So, but anyways, so you have my composers for all you Catholic pianists out there. We have
Paul Creston was because his dad.
yeah.
Figured he was Catholic.
Yeah, he is Catholic. He has also written works called, like, he has composed Ave Maria for solo piano. He has Pater Noster for solo piano. He's also got offertories for solo piano.
Sounds like he's a pretty prodigious composer.
Oh yeah, he's very.
I had no idea.
Yeah. Well, maybe we'll do a follow-up episode on Paul Creston, because he was very prolific. He did a lot for music education, and really a lot of his music approach and compositional approaches, he thanks his wife. She was a professional dancer. She did artistic dance. She was in ballet, and so a lot of the influence from there had carried on to his compositional work.
I'm thinking of
So,
a couple other people. Dalla Piccola.
Dalla Piccola.
You know
I've heard of
Luigi Dalla Piccola?
I've heard of him, but I
And then
know
who's the
nothing
guy
about it.
based in New York? I have his book up there. It's also because of the D.
Okay.
He wrote a composition and harmony book. He was based at Harmony or at the Juilliard or something like that.
This one?
No, it starts with a D. It's an Italian name. I have a book of Christmas carols that he arranged for four hands.
Oh, Norman Della Gioia.
Della Gioia.
Della Gioia, yeah.
Another Italian dude, right?
Very Italian dude, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I think he was based at Juilliard.
I didn't know that. Yeah.
Because
we
I have
to do
a
follow-up.
I think that I'm not sure, but I think with Robert Howard's 20th Century Classics we did, the music theory book that we used was from Della Gioia. I think so.
Wow.
Yeah.
I'd like to see what that looks like.
Yeah.
I only know him as a composer, so. But he's written some really large-scale works that fit the hand well. It's been very effective. I mean, one thing he knows really how to do well is to make the most difficult sounding music actually not so bad on the technical side. So that's the one thing he really does well. But anyways, that is all I brought for you folks today. So I've introduced you to Padre Antonio Soler. We talked about Respighi. We talked about the religious music of Franz Liszt. Olivier. I usually leave the French to him. My French is really bad. What is the brand? Paul Creston. Yeah, Paul Creston. Now, you have this book, right?
Yep.
Take a good look at it. A long time?
Oh, I bought that little book at either B. Dalton's or Walden Books at the Springfield Upper Valley Mall when it happened to be on the shelf. I saw it. Oh my God!
Yeah, I know. I mean, we just see Joseph Levine. We don't see the rest of the book. We just see Joseph Levine. Yeah. Gotta get it. Yeah. What's the name of the book? I don't know.
Joseph Levine. It was a very famous pianist from the early 20th century. Comparable in ability and talent. In terms of, he's very famous for kind of big hands that play octaves, like Horowitz, preceding Horowitz. Really.
Oh yeah.
And then he was married to this woman that he loved very much, Rosina.
Yeah.
I think she'd been his student initially.
Oh yeah,
like
she was his student.
So she's a bit younger than him.
Yeah.
But the two of them, when they moved to New York, they were Jewish. But they came to New York, I think, in the late 20s or something like that.
Something like that.
And then, made an impression on folks there. And the Juilliard School was started partially because of them. They were founding faculty members of the Juilliard School in New York City. And he was there for a while. There's some really good stories about Joseph.
Oh, yeah.
She studied with both of them, Adele Marcus.
Adele Marcus.
Who was a very famous teacher at Juilliard for decades. Yeah. She told some funny stories about how Joseph had gone off on concert tour.
Yeah.
And in the meantime, he took some piano lessons with Rosina, the wife, which he'd anticipated. Yeah. And then when he came back, she came in to play her lesson, and she was playing some stuff. And he said something like, "Well, who's the asshole that told you how to play it like that?" Well, I was working with Mrs. Levine while you were gone. And he said, oh, well, then by all means you should. I don't know if he was saving his own behind, or if he really had that much respect for his wife. Because there's some wonderful recordings of them playing Debussy,
Lafette,
two piano and four hand stuff. Yeah,
it's great.
But you were going to mention the book.
Yeah, I wanted to. Well,
sorry.
That's all right. I wanted to bring this book up because I was thinking that maybe, in a future episode we could discuss this book. Okay, because there's some interesting theories and approaches here. They're quite,
And some interesting ideas he has, very good ideas on pedaling especially. He was very famous for his pedaling.
Yeah, he was.
To be honest, I mean, the way he looked at the pedal is, I think, the way I also, especially once I studied with Howard Karp, who was a student of Rosina Levine.
Yeah.
The pedal should be something you use in addition to what you do with your hands. Yeah. And then the pedal helps to color things, like when I was telling you in the Haydn.
It's like what he said, though, in the book. Get this. He says, the pedaling must be every bit as expressive as the hands.
Yeah.
The way we use our hands and our fingers, the technique, pedal should be no different.
So it's not something where you just kind of
pump
it down or put it down when you're playing. But it's used as, in a sense, an augmentation or ornamentation of what you're doing with your hands.
Yeah.
I mean, somebody that comes to mind, I think, who also got that was pianist Ivo Pogarelli.
Oh, gosh, yeah.
Because when he played, now, Levine was famous for playing the toccata, Schumann, as was Pogarelli.
Yeah.
If you listen to both of them, though, because it started out being influenced by Czerny's toccata, right? Then Schumann built on that.
Yeah.
Both Pogarelli and Levine, often the recording sounds like there's next to no pedal being used.
Yeah, I know.
Especially Pogarelli.
Yeah.
Which is amazing because, again, this is one piece I would never play because the stretches are just too much. Because when you're playing the duggy, 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 sometimes you have to reach over the fourth finger to be able to play that octave over it.
Yeah.
Forget that.
Not going to work.
No, I can't do it. But both of them played it so fast and so cleanly. And if you listen to some of, there's not a ton of Levine's that I know of.
Yeah.
There are recorded things, but as far as I know, at some point I had what was known to have been recorded by him. There's a famous Chopin Pearl Records disc of the Chopin things he played. It really is quite extraordinary playing. And
Camden.
There was what's that?
The Camden label.
Oh, the Camden, yeah. There's an interesting story one time, apparently, that a bunch of young pianists in America went to, it sounds very,
well,
but they went to visit Godofsky, and they were at Godofsky's house,
Yeah.
and they were all sitting around. It's kind of like,
yeah.
But Godofsky apparently said after they kind of moved on at the party, or they were apart, because they were all sitting around Godofsky, you know, it's the great king of piano. And Levine was there with some of them. And something was said like, Godofsky said to somebody, if I were to add up all the talent that was in that room, it wouldn't be equal to what Levine could do. I mean, Godofsky had that high a regard for Joseph Levine, what he was able to do.
Yeah.
And he did some amazing things, like didn't he get a standing ovation by the piano faculty when he did his graduation recital for them in Moscow or St. Petersburg? There was two of them. There was two pianists, him and somebody else. Was it Horowitz?
Yeah, he performed at Don Giovanni.
And Levine also was famous for the Opus 25 number 10 prelude, the B minor.
Oh, that thing,
And I don't know about, they may have stood up for Horowitz, but famously, after Levine finished playing his final exam for the jury, they gave him a gold medal.
Oh, yeah.
They all stood up spontaneously and applauded.
Yeah.
And come on,
Yeah. He helped premiere one of Rachmaninoff's works.
Really?
Yeah, it's a work for two pianos, actually.
Suite?
Nope. Something called the Russian Rhapsody. I'll bring in the score sometime.
You got the score?
Yeah, I have. No, surprise.
This guy.
Yeah, I found.
He never invites me over to his house so I can see all his holdings.
Kathy would kill me, like my wife. Okay, she would kill me in the condition that the house is in right now. We'd be ashamed because I mention you over, at our house often, almost every day, and you're like royalty. Mark.
Oh, come on.
No, I'm serious. You're like royalty in our house.
Oh.
Because and this is no offense to some of my colleagues out there, but this guy's doing the thing. I'm sorry.
Oh, that's awful nice of you to
So,
say.
and I've known him since I was 14. You know, and unfortunately, we didn't get to formally know who.
And you know
we
how
are
we
until
how we
later,
met
you
up,
know.
which is really odd.
Yeah.
I had after I finished my doctorate, I spent
Yeah.
a good part of 20 years abroad, around the world. And the last part was 8 years as a professor in Cyprus.
Yeah.
I came back to the United States in 2012. My sister convinced me to move to Ohio again. I was thinking of probably going back out west somewhere.
Yep.
That's where I had lived before I left the country the previous time. And she said, well, you've been gallivanting around the world long enough. You need to come back to Ohio and especially help with our father, Dad.
Yeah.
He was in declining health. That was 2012. I came back. And then Dad passed in 2018. So I had 6 years. And especially, I would say, the last 4 years, he and I got really, really close. Spent a lot of time. Had a wonderful time to really kind of finally have an equal adult relationship with my father. And we had a great time together. We're very different people in lots of ways. And used to challenge each other sometimes about things. But the one thing that was really great, I knew my dad just loved me, really loved me. And the cool thing is that he remembered, he'd sometimes talk about, I remember when we brought you home and you were just like that. And both me and my dad were kind of eventually big guys.
Yeah.
Said, it's just nice to know that somebody remembers you that far back, Dad passed on February 18th in 2018. 4 days after the Valentine's Day. And I realized at that time I had suddenly there was a hole in my life. I went through some grief and stuff, and my partner Laura was real kind and helpful with that. But I had a strange kind of thing. I have, let's see, like Wagner, okay?
Yeah.
So I'm not alone in this. For my whole life, I've had bowel issues. Beethoven too, right?
Yeah.
And I've had very sensitive bowels. So I didn't realize it when I was a kid, but as I got older, I realized apparently I'm allergic to certain kind of things, and wow, they really set me off. Well, I desperately needed to find some black walnut, which is an anti-parasitic and helps to stabilize the bowels when they're really out of whack. I had ingested Giardia years ago in Colorado, and apparently it stays with you after that. It can be dormant, but sometimes it wakes up. And I had a bout of that. And I went to this place here in town called Raisin Rack,
Yes.
because I called around to these different health food stores. I said, do you have black walnut? And they said, yes. Well, when we went there was a sign on the door that was looking for new staff to regenerate their presently kind of faltering cafe. There's a really well-known cafe in the Raisin Rack grocery store, but the staff had all kind of like given up the ghost at some point, and they more or less all left. And I just remembered, that I'd worked in my father's restaurant for a while, and I was feeling very close to my dad, missing him and everything. And what it amounted to is I had some work I was doing and stuff, but I'm semi-retired professor and all that, and I was doing a little teaching and things like that. I wanted something to fill my time, because a lot of time was taken up with my dad, especially later on before he died. And I thought this was also a way of somehow connecting with something that my dad had loved, because he'd owned a restaurant. It was a big dream of his, and I worked in it for a few years when I was in high school. So I went in and talked to the guy, and I have, leadership history and all that kind of stuff. So he hired me to be the new manager of the cafe.
Yeah.
And I got in there, and all by myself to begin with. Probably the first week we were starting to begin to hire people. But I was by myself at least for the first week or so. And I got in there, and nothing had been done for a while. I tore that kitchen apart. I mean, literally pulling things away from the walls and just cleaning and stuff. There's no way we could open that kitchen with the state it was in when I found it. And fortunately, I got Dutch and Scottish blood, amongst other things, in me, and pretty rigid about house cleaning and stuff. So I cleaned that place up. We got it going and everything. Well, then This guy comes up at lunchtime one time and orders something. It turns out he was working somewhere nearby, and this was a common place where you come for lunch.
Oh yeah, it is.
And he came in and he said, "Are you Mark Haig?"
Yeah.
Go ahead, tell the story.
Well, okay. Well, I had heard from some of your fellow employees that they hired a pianist.
Oh.
And so I came in to see, and I came on, and believe it or not, I did come on different days, and sometimes you weren't there. So, okay, so they think they have a pianist. We'll see. Okay, so lo and behold, I show up, and I look at you, and I was like, oh my gosh, you guys hired Mark Haig. Oh my gosh. So I approached him and said, "Hey Mark, how are you?" You know, and it says, "I've known you since I was 14." And so you probably were thinking, "It says, okay, I've got a stalker or something." I don't know. But
not really.
No. But I've heard him play. Okay, it was wonderful when I was 14. I just the very shock of the way he performed. To me, he was a rock star. If I had if I had a poster, it would be like right there in my bedroom. I'm going to be just like that guy right there. So, but he played like a mad thing. But I'm not sure if you remember, but I had met you before that over at Gray's while you were rehearsing on the Horwitz piano.
That's right.
I did.
Yes, I remember.
Yeah. So, and one of my good friends who worked over there at the front desk introduced us.
Yeah.
And I knew who you were. I mean, I saw your flyer outside the door that you were doing a recital, and golly gee, what did I have to do? I had to go work.
Oh.
So my bosses were like, told me that no, you're not going. It says you need that. So, but anyways,
you have a copy of the recording?
No, I don't.
You never heard it?
I didn't get to go.
I got some multiple copies. I can give you one.
You can?
Yeah.
The Horowitz recital?
Yeah.
Really?
We call it that because Horowitz's Steinway D
went on tour
for a second time.
Yeah.
Years before, when I was in Madison studying with Howard, this would have been the mid '80s. After Horowitz had died, they fixed up his piano and they sent it around the country to music stores and places so people could have a chance to play on it. And it was at a music store in Madison. And I was signed up near the end of the time to go have my couple hours on it and go play. But I was so busy with stuff all the time, my God. Yeah. I finally had to call and said, I'm sorry, I'm not going to be able to use the time to come in. And I thought, damn, never get to really see what Horowitz's piano was like. So then I'm here in Columbus. I'd just come back the previous summer. This was the summer of 2013. And I was preparing to do a piano recital because I thought I'd introduce myself to the Columbus scene, let them know what I could do. And I'd actually started to sing with, and then actually immediately they found out who I was and I played for the Columbus Spinner Corps, of which I'm now the music director. And I was playing for somebody up in northern Ohio. I forget exactly what it was, but I came out after I was done with all that, and the phone rang, and it was Charles. From Graves Piano. And he said, we were wondering, this is Charles, and he said, we were wondering if you'd like to play your concert on the Vladimir Horowitz piano. I forgot that it was coming through here. I said, who is this, And it turns out that the Horowitz piano was making another tour.
Yeah.
This was 2013. And they'd forgotten that it was coming through in their store. And sure enough, it was there on the stage. That's another interesting. They had a 7-foot plus Steinway, German Steinway, that had belonged to the Sound of Music Girl and Mary Poppins.
Yeah, Julie Andrews.
Julie Andrews in London.
Yeah.
Somehow they had that one for some time. Eventually somebody bought it. But there it was the serial number.
Autographed.
Right there. I don't know if it had autograph in it or not, but it was the Horowitz piano. And it was really quite a fascinating instrument because it was not heavy to play. It was not, way to play. But it had, I mean, some people talked about having played it at times and they thought it was kind of surprisingly heavy. It wasn't heavy that way. It's just that some things that he'd done was to adjust it so that the dampers were really tight on the keys.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Really tight. So that if you just played and you wanted to play Bach or something like that, for example, with him and Scarlatti and various things he did, the damn thing played like a harpsichord. I mean, it definitely pop, 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 pop. Because those dampers were right there on the strings and then would move. The other cool thing, though, was how he then compensated for that was the damper pedal, which routinely doesn't really move anything until it's about halfway down. Mm-hmm. The moment that your foot comes into contact on it, just a little bit, and they're moving a little bit. Yeah. What was really cool is from the moment that you begin to activate the damper, and flooring it was ridiculous.
Exactly.
But you could really get those suckers up in the air if you floored it. But somewhere between hardly touching it and halfway to maybe 2/3 of the way was more than enough if you're thinking like Levine's using the pedal to play with. And it turns out, I think, Horowitz as well, real sensitivity to what the pedal could do. And similarly, it also had a genuine sostenuto for a second pedal. Yep. And the soft pedal was adjusted so that if you put it halfway down, it played on 2 strings. If you put it all the way down, it played on 1. I mean, it actually moved the keyboard. It was pretty specific. I mean, you'd want to get it right, so it was either halfway down or all the way down because it would play in between, and that was kind of odd. Yeah. But the really cool thing about it was the bloom of the once the hammer hit the string, especially when you're in the soprano range and up. Pianos will go boing. Let's say you hit the fundamental, boom, and then maybe. Horowitz's piano will go boom, and a third time. As you get up higher, where the what you call it are so high, usually only what you hear on most pianos is the first bloom after the fundamental. Barely. But you could get 2 up there. But in the range where the ears are so working, everything was easily working on a third bloom. It was the longest ringing sound I've ever heard. And I found myself in a short order adapting to the piano's abilities. I played Bach's D major transcription of the Italian guy's oboe concerto.
Oh, Marcello.
The Marcello concerto. I played the 3-movement solo concerto thing the Bach wrote. Yeah. It's that beautiful second movement, the Adagio. Yeah. Oh, yeah. I played that. I played the Fantasy in D minor of Mozart. I think I played the G flat and the A flat impromptus of Schubert. I think that was the first half. I'm not sure. There may have been something else. What I do remember that I played the big C sharp minor Polonaise, the first one of Chopin. Played a mess of mazurkas. Anyway, it was Chopin stuff. I don't remember all of it. Yeah. But I did play at the end, I think, were 2 Liszt piano transcriptions, and the first one I did was the Chopin List, Moja Peixotka, Meine Freuden, Chopin List, and then I played the Widmung of Schumann, arranged by Liszt. I think that was the program. I think there might have been some more stuff in it. But what was really cool was, Horowitz was kind of infamous sometimes, especially in longer narrative kind of music, They always. That's why we talked. I think at the beginning about him being the master of the miniature.
Yeah.
But sometimes, especially in the '60s and the '70s, sometimes people thought that his playing of longer narrative type pieces, like even the Chopin G minor ballad or something, a little quirky.
Oh,
Because of his rubato and stuff like that. I found myself in the lyric moments of like the second part of the C sharp minor.
Nice.
The piano, because it had this incredible bloom in it, wanted to sing.
Yeah.
And it was almost like a conductor who's not sensitive to the singer and giving, like, come on, if you're,
Yeah.
like the way Funkaria accompanies Jesse Norman in some of that Wagner stuff. I mean, only she could sing some of those phrases like that. And he made space for her. There's no ego there like, well, this is the way that I do Wagner.
Yeah.
No, he let the instrument sing for itself. And my God, some of the Tristan and Isolde stuff that she does is unbelievable and irrepeatable by anybody else because it was so extraordinary instrument. I found myself just thinking, no, I've got Jesse Norman here that wants to sing. Who the hell am I to rein her in?
Exactly.
And I started to play certain things with this rubato. I think it was a naturally derived thing from the nature of how lovely the piano was. It could be. Because at the same time, when I played the Bach, you could play that thing almost like a harpsichord because those dampers were right back on the strings and had a really poppy, crisp kind of way of playing, So it was one of my memorable experiences, one of the memorable piano playing experiences I had to play on that instrument, because I've subsequently played the C sharp minor and some other things. Mm-hmm. I think one of the early concerts from the minor corps that I played during the COVID year, I don't play it the same way because it's a good Steinway down there, but it's not that
Steinway.
And so it's like chicken and the egg thing. So did Horowitz play the way he did because the piano was Franz Moore made it sing like that? Did it always sing like that? And then he had Franz Moore do more of it? Did Horowitz have that sound in mind and managed to get Franz Moore to do it?
The story was the piano was already there. Franz Moore was working on pianos, and they had just brought in a new Steinway D, and he tried it out, and right away he knew exactly. I mean, he always knew what Horowitz wanted, and when he played it and fooled with it, he said, "Oh my gosh, this is Horowitz's piano." And so he called him right away, and he says, "Maestro Horowitz," he says, "they have a new Steinway D. It is absolutely the kind of piano that you want, 100%." He said, "You should come over and try it out," and he did. He drove over, tried out the piano, and he says, "Wow." He says, "Franz Moore knows exactly what I want." This is exactly, and the rest is history.
The cool thing is, that those of you might not know this, but in past years we knew.
Yep.
Horowitz only performed on that piano.
Yep.
He took it with him, I think, almost everywhere. He took it to Europe when he recorded the Mozart A major, was it, with Giulini?
Yep.
That was his piano. I don't know if he took it with him to Japan. If it went all the way to Japan or not. I'm sure it probably did. He probably made people pay for it to do it. But when he played anywhere, he played at the White House, when he played at Carnegie Hall, when he played at the Metropolitan Opera.
Yep.
There was people always talking about when he lived, I forget what this, 57th Street or something?
Yeah.
And so people would talk about the big deal. There's a big crane that came in and blocked traffic on the street. And then there's this huge black piano coming out of some of the top stories of the house. I think he had a 5-story house in Manhattan. And they bring it out the window, there's a big piano coming down and get loaded on. And that was it. I mean, what's his name does that a lot, if not always now too. The one who I like so much, Christian Zimmerman.
Christian Zimmerman, yeah.
He travels with his own piano.
Yeah.
As far as I know, pretty much he always plays his own piano. Now. But that was an interesting thing, right here in Columbus, Ohio. I showed up. This was probably instead of back between 86 and 88, I was in my graduate degree. So it's 12, was this like 25 years later? I'm here.
Yeah.
Hey, we got Horowitz's piano coming through the store this week. Would you like to use it for your recital? Which was really cool because when they were traveling with it before, there was a pianist, a former pianist of Carp's, that she told me she'd managed to get 2 times to play on it. 2 2-hour sessions.
Wow.
And people could have an hour to 2 hours, and it was dependent really very much on their level of pianism. The store would decide how much time you could get. And I sat down on Wednesday at this thing for the first time, and then it was mine until I gave the concert on Sunday.
Wow.
I went in there every day, and I practiced on it, got used to it, everything, and then played on it. I had hours of time on the Horowitz piano, which nobody else I know necessarily did, at least previously. I really got to play a full recital on that piano. And definitely one of the most memorable instruments I've ever played. Wow. And I think there's something interesting about it because it was not hard to play. Some people remarked about it that maybe it had changed. He changed it at different times.
Yeah.
But as I said, the sense of, well, the cool thing is, the thing about it was, and maybe this is what put people off, a lot of pianos pretty much, there's a certain amount of, I don't know, it's not a nice thing to say, but play in the upper movement of the key. Sometimes there's a little bit of play in the key. I actually do prefer to have a very sensitive keyboard. I don't like, I was never a monster fan of Baldwin's because I always thought that there's a little bit of play in it and it felt a little heavy, and then beyond that, the Baldwin always seemed to have kind of a voice of its own.
Yeah.
I know, like, what's his face liked him a lot.
Oh yeah, Earl Wild did.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was a Baldwin fan after.
But the hammers had a way of, bam, really hit the strings, and it was a good concerto piano.
Yeah.
And it had a impressive kind of sound. There's a big difference between new Baldwins, stay away from those, and the old ones made before 1930 or so, like that. Those are magnificent instruments. Really quite nice. But the thing with Horowitz was that, just like with the damper pedal, as I'd said, the same thing was true of the key. That the moment that you start to move, the hammer's moving with you.
Yeah.
And the only time when you're going to bottom out is when you're playing like really big stuff, but that wasn't even really necessary.
Yeah.
I mean, that would be kind of reckless. But what I liked about the instrument, and I think what a lot of pianists would find challenging, you better know exactly what the sound is that you want, and then you have an understanding truly of what gesture is necessary to activate that sound.
Yeah.
Because once you begin to move that key, if you weren't in mental control of what you wanted to do, and let's say a combination of the heart and the mind and the ear, this is what I want to create, this is the sound I want to create, and you familiarize enough with your tools that you know how to get it to do it. But pretty much if you made a mistake in terms of the gesture you made, she'd give you back exactly what you asked for.
Yeah.
Not necessarily what you wanted, but what you told her you wanted.
Yeah.
And that's what she give you. So it required a lover's sensitivity to his partner's seriously. I mean, Arthur Rubinstein often talked about how sensuous piano playing felt to him.
Yeah.
It was a very sensuous kind of feeling. This was probably one of the most. I mean, you had to know what she liked, how she liked it, or he, whatever your choice is, and make sure that you do it right, And then, most people, this is not pushing it too far, but if you please your partner, you're going to have a good time. Okay? And I got quite intimately
acquainted to
that piano. And I think that's where people could suggest that it was heavy or difficult to play or this or that, because it was all instantaneous. Everything about her was just immediate response. And I think I often refer to Horowitz's approach to the piano ways like a panther or a cat.
Yeah.
You think about the way they are, very soft and and then their bodies instantaneously reactive, whether they attack or they respond to something that scares them or anything like that. Yeah, the instrument was cat-like in that sense. It was incredibly sensitive. So,
there's an interesting story about that piano. How Horowitz used to practice his pianissimos. I don't remember. I don't know if you've ever read it, but they'd be in their. He and Wanda would be in their apartment, and when he wanted to practice and gauge his pianissimos, he would actually put the lid down and have Wanda in the other room, and he'd play as softly as he can, but bring out a volume until she could hear it from the other room.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how he practiced his pianissimos.
Wow.
He always needed a second person in the other room.
Interesting.
So, yeah, I thought it was
And who better than Toscanini's daughter?
I know, you couldn't do better than that.
Who had an iron will and opinion that she always knew she was right.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. So,
I mean, there is some interviews sometimes where she puts Horowitz in his place.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. There's a 60 Minutes segment where he's over there playing Revolutionary Etude, and she's on the couch saying, "Okay, could you please stop now?"
He played it up.
Yeah, he did.
He was like a little mischievous boy.
Yeah. But anyways, that's how we first met while he was rehearsing on the Horowitz piano at Graves.
Yeah. So
we were introduced, and tell you the truth, for me, I was in the presence of greatness, and I thought when one of the people introduced us, he says, "This young man here, he plays the piano." I says, "Well, kind of." I sat there like this. He says, "Yeah, I could carry it to him." And she was like telling me, she says, "No, he really can play. He also writes his own transcriptions." And I remember the look he gave me. He said, "You write transcriptions?" "Yeah, I kind of do."
He does a good job at it. We gotta try this one more time.
Try what?
I'm not sure maybe why it didn't work, but I want to send some of his transcriptions to Stephen Huff.
Oh, Stephen Huff.
And maybe we could send them to Christopher O'Reilly, too.
Oh, yeah, Christopher O'Reilly.
There's a few guys that are known for that. Yeah. He does a nice job with his things, and I just thought it might be nice if he got some recognition for that work that he does. Yeah.
Far in between. Well, folks, did you want
the time to wrap things up?
I think so, because it's a little bit after 5, and I got to get to rehearsal soon.
Oh, okay.
So, but I hope you enjoyed our content today. Let's see, if you did, please give us a thumbs up and subscribe. And if you have any comments of any topics you'd like for us to talk about, leave it in the comments. We always look there and read your comments.
And if you want to become part of our, I would say our forum where we can actually talk to each other and discuss things, we have a corresponding. And actually, if you go from YouTube, you can connect directly to our Facebook page, which is the same thing, Marc & Elmer's PSI. Or you could go straight to it on Facebook. But I think once we get these episodes from this year up and catch up, because this might be number 5 or number 6, I think I can get at least 2 of them done before next week. So hopefully by springtime, maybe we'll be caught up, and then I'd like to get to the point where we're putting up that week's show, and we'll be much more contemporaneous with our digital audience and the show that's put up like that. So anyway, thank you for being with us today. I think this one may go down as the shortest one that we've done so far.
Well, we had some good topics here too. We talked a lot. We had some good conversations about composers. And given in that it's we're the Catholic calendar, it's Lent. So
Well, I thought about a bunch of different ones. You know, if they're Spanish or Italians, it's like a friend of mine, Alessandro Siciliani. He was a great conductor. He was in the hospital recently, just for a short period of time. He had an infection he had to have treated. But somebody came into him, I think it was one of the nurses or somebody, and noticed, I forget how she made the recognition or something, but she said there's going to be some opportunity to pray and some nice music. They had a religious space in the, almost St. Anne's.
St. Anne's?
So that's Catholic hospital.
Yeah, there's a chapel.
So he was, I think, at St. Anne's. And she said, I know who you are. You're Italian. She said, are you by chance Catholic?
Yeah.
And he said, I'm Italian. And so he said they actually took him to the
chapel,
the chapel and stuff, and it was nice. It was something for Lynn. It might have been
Ash Wednesday.
Could have been Ash Wednesday, I think. Yeah. And I thought his response was, "Duh, I'm an Italian. What else would I be?" And it is kind of true when you think about it. There are certain nationalities.
Yeah, predominantly
Italians, Spaniards,
Filipinos.
It's not always true of the French because they have Huguenot. There's Protestant strains in there.
Yeah.
But interestingly, most of the Austrian faith most of the time is Catholic.
Poles,
yeah.
The Poles.
Yeah. So we could have thought. I actually was thinking of a lot of other composers too. Granados would have fit the bill, right? Albania,
Spanish, maybe.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I don't know.
I don't know enough about
Spanish,
them.
but yeah. And then the thing is pretty much anything before Martin Luther in the European classical realm.
Oh yeah,
they were Catholics.
Pretty much. Yeah, pretty much.
So
okay.
Well, anyway, I hope you enjoyed it, and we'll be with you again next sometime. I'm Mark.
I'm Elmer.
This
we
is
PSI, Piano Scene Investigations.
Take care, everybody.
Catch you later.